Coach, and we'll take questions. Coach?
Well, I wish the game was 28 minutes. For us, 2 games in a row, Michigan and Nebraska, we played 28 minutes of really good basketball and then 12 minutes of really poor basketball. And give Nebraska a lot of credit for that. They're an experienced group. They're a tough-minded group. I thought we did a lot of good things defensively up until that point. And then, I thought it was a real critical stretch. There was we didn't convert on a 2-on-1. And then there was a long rebound, and one of our guys was going for the ball, and Sam, does what he does. He gets a loose ball, and they pitch it ahead, and Price hits a 3. And that kind of ignited their run. And we just struggled offensively all night. We had a hard time getting Nick going. Give them credit. They do a really good job defensively, scheming and sending bodies and making you pass. And, we're just not a very good shooting team, so that hurts us. When we get them in rotation, we don't have very confident shooters right now, which makes it hard. The other night you watched the game, I think Purdue shot 46 threes. In a lot of respects, that's what their defense gives up, because you get them in rotation. You have the ability, you got to make shots. And we just weren't able to do that. And I thought our offense then affected our D. With young guys, that can happen. And you play in an environment like this and the crowd gets going and they got some confidence. Jacobson made a couple big ones. Obviously, Price was fantastic, 29 points. And, he's going to make a lot of shots. But if you give a really good shooter 13 clean looks, that's a recipe for disaster, because a good shooter out of 13 clean looks is going to make 5 at a minimum. And if you're really unlucky, he's going to make 9 or 10. So didn't do a great job on him, but really good team. Fred's done a great job assembling this group, tough-minded, experience, play hard, play really well defensively, and there's a reason why their record is what it is.
Defensively, what were you guys able to do early? Seems like you had them out of sorts on offense, created a lot of turnovers. What was kind of the plan defensively?
Well, they are so good with their movement, and their cutting, and if you let them, they execute. Fred has always run great stuff, as you guys all know. So we tried to do some switching, with which kind of, if you're doing it right and talking well, it can maybe blow up some actions with flares and double downs and things of that nature. And I thought, kind of forced them to be one-on-one players. That was the whole goal. Obviously, they beat us, so it's not like we have the answer. But we didn't want them to get into a rhythm, of just turning us over, running their actions, running their split cuts and their back doors and getting shooters coming off. So we wanted to try to keep the ball in front of us and make them play a lot of one-on-one. And obviously, you want to try to take away Rink's threes. That's always a big factor. So tried to switch with him to eliminate some of his pick and pops. And for a while, I thought we forced some turnovers. Thought we did a lot of good things. But as the game wore down, as we got a little bit tired, and then our inability to score, I think started affecting us on the other end. Which you got to be stronger than that. You got to be tougher. If that's the kind of game it is, you got to be trying to win 50-48, right? Sometimes it's those kind of nights, and we just weren't able to put full 40 minutes together. Credit Nebraska for that.
I think it was about Nebraska's defensive activity that made things tough. Especially
Yeah, we're not really a high turnover team, but they do a really good job. They have active hands, their rotation, they come over, they're aggressive. They're not overly tall, but they're physical. The most physical guy on the floor is Sam, and he's the shortest guy on the floor. And he comes down, he got 4 steals. I thought they were able to get some deflections, and we didn't make great decisions in a lot of cases. Passes that we told guys weren't going to be there, we still tried to make, and they feast on your mistakes. And, for us, I think we're one of, I haven't checked, we're one of the nation's leaders in terms of least amount of turnovers for game. So for us to have 16 turnovers, that's going to be a recipe for a loss for us, and give them credit for that with their defense.
All right. Coach, you talked about the Michigan game and losing that lead, and then you do it again tonight. What's the biggest thing preventing this team from closing out the game?
Yeah, I just think the toughness and wherewithal to kind of fight over and get over the hump. It's really hard in this league. Everybody goes through it. Look at our last 2 weeks. We played at Illinois, at Iowa, home against Michigan, at Nebraska in a 2-week span. That's about as tough as it's going to come, but other people have it too. And we're starting 3 true freshmen, and they're learning. and there's no substitute for. I'm not sure there's any other teams in the league starting 3 true freshmen, and we're paying for that a little bit, but that's kind of part of the process. We've always been a developmental program. I've always believed in, recruiting high school players and giving them a chance to get better and learn and develop. And, we're kind of taking our lumps and learning on the fly for how tough you got to be, because these last 2 games, we played 2 teams that are Big Ten championship worthy teams. When it got to the last 12 minutes of the game, their mettle, they turned the screws up. Defensively, they locked in a little bit tighter. They got a little bit tighter with their offense. They understood it was winning time, and that's where we've really struggled, with our group. And we got 5 more opportunities to try to get it right and figure out some wins here as we close down the season.
Questions? Hey, Chris, it wasn't too long ago that you led Northwestern in the first NCAA tournament win. Nebraska's trying to do the same thing again this year. When you look back on that season, especially like this time of the year, as the pressure of that goal becoming a reality gets closer and closer, what's the key to handling that and getting over the mountaintop?
Yeah, I think in our situation, everything is different. When we were going through it, we had never even played in the NCAA tournament. And we were actually, too, Nebraska's firmly in the field. At this time of the year, we needed wins. The last 6 games, we needed 2-3 wins, and I felt the pressure was really mounting on our guys. I think the one thing about this Nebraska team is they're firmly in the field with their wins and what they've done, which is going to help. Now they can just really lock in on playing better, getting to the tournament. But there's no question our guys were feeling the pressure of 80 years. In our case, it was 80 years of never even appearing. And, I think one of the best advice I ever got, I remember talking to Coach Izzo during that time, is everybody was talking about it around him, but maybe I wasn't talking to the guys about the pressure because I wanted to ease the air out of the ball, so to speak. And he said, don't do that. Meet the pressure head on. If you're going to do something great, there's pressure involved. This is big boy basketball. And if you want to go to a tournament, if you want to win a Big Ten, if you want to advance in the tournament, it is going to be pressure. And you got to be tough, and you got to meet it head on, and you got to play with confidence. And Fred does such a great job. He's a terrific coach. He's got a great staff. And the veteran leadership at this group, man, is so impressive. It's really probably I hate competing against them, and we're trying like heck to beat them, but it's really one of my favorite teams to watch. When I'm sitting back, I love the way they play. They're really together. They're all about winning, and it's been fun to watch this group this year. All right, thank you guys.